Imagine your life hanging by a thread, not because of some grand, dramatic event, but because of the quiet, relentless ticking of a clock you can't stop. Has anyone ever told you that something is impossible? I did. Alexandra Holt was a force of nature, a woman carved from ambition and tempered by loss. Her world was one of steel and sky, of roaring engines and contracts worth millions. Her days unfolded with cold, calculated precision, each decision a move in a high-stakes game where only the ruthless survived. Love, she'd learned, was a luxury she couldn't afford, a weakness that could be exploited. The memory of her mother's smile, fleeting and fragile before the tragic plane crash, was locked away. Jack Hunter carried a different kind of weight. The dust of forgotten battlefields clung to his soul, a constant reminder of a life lived in the shadows. He found solace in the ordinary, in the quiet rhythm of mopping floors, in the unwavering belief in Emma, his daughter, his son. The heart of the matter is the H-145, a helicopter that stood silent and defiant, a metallic beast refusing to roar. The hangar held its breath, the air thick with frustration. Time was money, and every second that passed was a step closer to disaster. Alexandra stalked, her sharp gaze scanning the room, seeking a solution, a miracle. It was that kind of day that changed everything. Jack Hunter, a name whispered with a touch of disdain, stood unobtrusively by the wall. His eyes, however, were not those of a mere janitor. They were eyes that had seen too much, that had dissected countless mechanical failures under the unforgiving glare of war. Alexandra saw a spark of something familiar in his gaze, and acted rashly. "Fix this helicopter," she announced, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. "And I'll kiss you right now in front of everyone." The air crackled with disbelief. Alexandra Holt, the Ice Queen, offering a kiss? The janitor? It was an absurd proposition. But in the absurdity, there was an undercurrent of desperation, a willingness to gamble everything on the faintest flicker of hope. One wrong move, and the world comes crashing down. This statement made Jack stop. Jack Hunter's life was one of quiet sacrifice, each day a careful balancing act between providing for his daughter and escaping the ghosts of his past. The loss of his wife, Sarah, hung over him like a shroud, a constant reminder of his failure to protect the one person he loved most. He had retreated from the world, finding solace in the anonymity of his work. Here, mopping floors and emptying trash bins, he didn't have to be Jack Hunter, the decorated engineer, the grieving husband. He could just be the guy who made sure the floors were clean. Emma, his 7-year-old daughter, was his world. She had Sarah's eyes, a spark of quiet determination that reminded him of the woman he had lost. Emma was a dreamer, a budding scientist who saw wonder in every broken appliance and discarded circuit board. She loved robots and coding and the endless possibilities that lay hidden within the digital realm. Jack's promise to Emma before school began every day: came home safe. Don't forget lunch. And help her with her project. The project, a small autonomous rover for the regional robotics competition, was Emma's obsession. She had poured her heart and soul into it, spending hours tinkering with sensors and writing code. The workshop lights were a necessity to make the rover in time. The prize wasn't just a trophy. It was a full scholarship to a summer STEM camp, a chance for Emma to chase her dreams. The workshop at her school, however, had been closed for weeks due to a wiring issue. Emma was stuck working at home under a flickering desk lamp, struggling to see the tiny components she needed to solder. Jack had called the school repeatedly, but no one seemed to care. So when Alexandra Holt made her outrageous offer, Jack didn't think about the job or even about the kiss. He thought about Emma, about the lights in that workshop, about the look of quiet determination on her face when she showed him the rover for the first time. "Dad," she'd asked, her voice small, "do you think I can actually win?" He told her, "Yes, you can win. Because that's what fathers do. They say yes, even when they're not sure. Even when the world is stacked against you." Jack knew that some problems couldn't be fixed. Sarah's depression, the gaping hole in his heart, the constant ache of loneliness. But engines, wiring, pressure valves, those were problems with solutions, with logic, with clear steps from broken to whole. He knew how to fix things. It was the one skill he could count on. His last moment with Sarah haunts him. "I'm sorry I can't be the mother she deserves," she said. Jack told her she was perfect, but there was no time. He didn't want Emma to feel the loss of her mother. He made it his responsibility to shield her. Fixing the helicopter meant more than just saving his job. It meant giving Emma her lights back, her workshop back, her chance to shine. It meant proving to her that her father could still do anything. It meant honoring Sarah's memory by ensuring that their daughter had every opportunity to succeed. He walked towards the H-145, the weight of his past and the hope for his future resting on his shoulders. It was time to be an engineer again. He took off his gloves slowly. For the first time in 7 years, the ghost of the man he used to be stirred within him. The scent of jet fuel and oil filled his nostrils, triggering a flood of memories. He remembered the heat of the desert sun on his skin, the roar of the engines, the camaraderie of his fellow soldiers. He remembered the impossible missions, the desperate repairs, the lives he had saved. What no one in that hangar knew, what no one could have guessed, was that Jack Hunter had spent 6 years keeping military helicopters alive in war zones where failure meant death. He'd patched bullet holes and rotor blades with sheet metal and aviation-grade epoxy. He'd rewired avionics panels by flashlight while mortars fell 100 yards away. He'd once restarted a downed Black Hawk using a car battery and jumper cables because the auxiliary power unit had been shot to hell. He'd been decorated twice, commended 4 times, and he'd walked away from all of it the day he buried his wife. Jack Hunter was no janitor. He was a survivor, a warrior, an engineer. And today, he was going to fix that helicopter. Jack crouched down beside the H-145, his flashlight beam cutting through the dimness. He peered into the turbine intake, his eyes scanning every surface, every connection, every detail. The engineers had missed something. They had relied on diagnostics, on computers, on protocols. They had forgotten the human element, the intuition that came from years of experience. He saw it immediately, a fine metallic dust, almost invisible to the naked eye, coating the interior surfaces of the pressure regulation chamber. It was a rare issue, something you'd only encounter in extreme conditions. He'd seen it once before in Mosul, on a Chinook that had flown through a sandstorm and sucked in particulate matter so fine it bypassed all the filters and clogged the compression system from the inside. The diagnostics had shown nothing because it wasn't an electrical fault. It was physical, mechanical, the kind of problem that required hands, not computers. He stood up and turned to face Alexandra and the gathered engineers. "It's the pressure valve," he said, his voice calm and steady. "There's a blockage, metallic dust. You won't see it on the diagnostics because it's not a sensor issue. It's a physical obstruction in the compression chamber." The engineer with the Caltech ring scoffed. "Metallic dust? We ran a full system purge this morning. Standard protocol." "Not deep enough," Jack said calmly. "You need to pull the valve housing, clean the interior surfaces manually, and check the compressor intake for residue accumulation. If you don't, it'll cycle fine on the ground, but fail again under load within 3 days." Another engineer, younger, with an Oxford University lanyard, stepped forward. "And you know this how? Do you have a degree in aeronautical engineering we don't know about?" Jack didn't answer. He just looked at Alexandra. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. Not mockery anymore. Something else. Calculation maybe. Assessment. "You have until 2 p.m., she said, her voice steady. But there was something underneath it. Curiosity. Or maybe just the faint hope that she wouldn't have to call Seattle and cancel. If this bird flies by 2 o'clock, you get your kiss and you keep your job. If it doesn't, you're gone. No appeal. No second chance. Clock starts now." She checked her watch. Then she turned and walked toward her office, heels clicking on concrete. The engineers dispersed slowly, muttering to each other. A few stayed to watch. Most didn't believe he'd even know how to open the cowling properly. Jack stood alone beside the helicopter. He looked at his watch. It was 11:47 a.m. He had 2 hours and 13 minutes. He thought about Emma again, about her sitting in that dark workshop with her flickering desk lamp trying to solder circuits she could barely see. About how she never complained. About how she'd look at him with those serious eyes and say, "It's okay, Dad. I can make it work." She shouldn't have to make it work. She was 7 years old. She deserved good lights. She deserved the same tools the other kids had. She deserved a fair shot. Jack took a breath. Then he walked to the custodial office, unlocked his locker, and pulled out the duffel bag he kept hidden behind the cleaning supplies. Inside was his old toolkit. Military-grade precision instruments. Some he'd bought with his own money during his service. Some he'd fabricated himself in machine shops on base. He told himself 100 times he should sell them, that he didn't need them anymore, that he'd left that life behind. But he'd never been able to let them go. They were a part of him, a reminder of who he was, of what he could do. He carried the bag back to the hangar, set it on the floor beside the H-145, and unzipped it slowly. The tools gleamed under the fluorescent lights: torque wrenches, precision screwdrivers, a digital multimeter, a fiber optic inspection camera he'd won in a poker game in Kandahar. He picked up the first tool, a ratchet wrench with a custom grip he'd wrapped himself. It fit in his hand like it had never left. And for the first time in 7 years, Jack Hunter stopped pretending to be someone else. He got to work. Jack began with methodical precision, each movement honed by years of experience. The engine cowling came off in a matter of minutes, a testament to his innate understanding of the machine. The engineers who had scoffed earlier now watched with a mixture of curiosity and grudging respect. This wasn't the clumsy fumbling of an amateur. This was the work of a professional. He disconnected the electrical harness, carefully tagging each wire with small pieces of tape. The valve housing came next, a complex piece of engineering that required a delicate touch. He worked slowly, deliberately, his mind focused on the task at hand. He could feel the eyes on his back, the whispers, the scrutiny. But he didn't care. He was in his element, lost in the intricate dance of metal and mechanics. The metallic dust was exactly as he had described. A fine, almost invisible coating that clung to the interior surfaces of the pressure regulation chamber. He cleaned each surface with meticulous care, using a microfiber cloth and aviation-grade solvent. The fiber optic camera confirmed his work, revealing the clean metal underneath. The compressor intake was a challenge. He had to reach into a space barely wide enough for his arm, working blind, guided only by feel and experience. Sweat dripped down his temple. His shoulder ached from the awkward angle. But he didn't stop. He couldn't stop. He reassembled the valve housing, reconnected the hydraulic lines, reattached the sensor array. Every connection had to be perfect. Every bolt had to be torqued to spec. One mistake, and the engine wouldn't just fail to start. It would fail catastrophically, possibly during flight. By 1:38 p.m., he was reconnecting the final electrical connection. His hands were covered in grease despite the gloves. His back hurt. His knees ached from crouching on concrete. But the work was almost done. He ran a manual pressure test using a gauge from his toolkit. The needle climbed smoothly, no fluctuations, no drops. Good. He closed the cowling, torqued the bolts in sequence, and stepped back. The engineers had returned, more of them now. Word had spread. Someone had told someone who'd told someone else. Now there were maybe 20 people watching, their faces a mixture of anticipation and disbelief. Alexandra appeared at 1:50 p.m. She didn't say anything, just stood there with her arms crossed, her face unreadable. Jack wiped his hands on a rag. He looked at her. Try it now. She walked to the pilot's door, climbed into the seat, and reached for the ignition. The hangar fell silent. You could hear the ventilation system humming. Someone coughed. Alexandra turned the key. The starter motor whirred. The turbine began to spin, slowly at first, then faster. The rotor blades shuddered, then began to turn. The engine roared to life, smooth and powerful, filling the hangar with sound. The H-145 lifted 6 inches off the ground, hovered there, steady, perfect, then settled back down. Alexandra shut off the engine. The rotors slowed, stopped. Silence fell again, heavier this time. She climbed out of the cockpit, walked over to Jack, and stopped 3 feet in front of him. Everyone was watching, phones were out, recording, waiting to see if the ice queen of aviation would actually kiss the janitor. Jack pulled off his gloves, looked her in the eye, and said the thing no one expected. I don't need your kiss. Jack's voice was quiet, but clear. It carried across the hangar like a bell. Alexandra froze. Her expression didn't change, not initially, but behind the rigid set of her jaw, something flickered. Surprise, perhaps. Disappointment? It was impossible to tell. What Alexandra didn't expect. She thought he's saving the company, the workers, but he just doing it for his daughter. Her mind raced. What just happened? In the carefully constructed world she built. He stopped the world. He has her focus. Now it's her choice. For years, she had cultivated an image of invincibility, a shield against the vulnerabilities she had learned to suppress. She had believed that emotions were a weakness, that love was a distraction. She had built her life on logic and precision, on contracts and deadlines. But in that moment, standing in front of Jack Hunter, surrounded by the silent, expectant faces of her employees, she felt a crack in her armor. His words had pierced through her carefully constructed facade, revealing a glimpse of something she had long denied, a capacity for genuine connection. She wanted to say it was nothing but respect for his skills, but she felt strange. This day made her think more. Maybe she'll change the way she live. Maybe he needed. He and his daughter. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. The engineers held their breath. The phones continued to record. Even the air seemed to vibrate with anticipation. Then, Alexandra Holt did something no one expected. She smiled. It was a small smile, barely a flicker at the corner of her lips, but it was there. A genuine smile, not the practiced, professional smile she used at galas and conferences. It was a smile that reached her eyes, softening the sharp edges of her face, revealing a hint of the woman she had buried beneath layers of ambition and grief. In the tapestry of life, it's not the grand gestures that truly matter, but the quiet acts of kindness, the moments of shared humanity that weave us together. If you've ever felt lost, remember that even in the darkest of nights, a single spark of hope can ignite a fire. If this story resonated with you, if it touched your heart, even in the slightest way, please share the love. Give it a like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories that celebrate the beauty and resilience of the human spirit. Your support means the world. And who knows, maybe you'll discover a hidden spark within yourself. Thank you for being a part of this journey. May your days be filled with light and healing. It only takes a spark to ignite a flame, a single act of kindness to change a life. Have you ever felt invisible, like your true worth was hidden beneath layers of expectation and judgment? Because this is a story about seeing beyond the surface, finding value in the unexpected, and discovering that sometimes the most extraordinary love stories begin in the most ordinary places. And if you are intrigued enough by the magic that can be found in human connections, remember to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's explore the healing power of love together. Alexandra watched him, a silent observer in her own gilded cage. Jack Hunter, night custodian. But there was something in the way he moved, a quiet confidence that belied his position. He stood before a room of engineers, their faces etched with frustration after hours of failed attempts, and simply fixed the problem. The helicopter, a symbol of her empire, hummed back to life under his touch. A touch that felt strangely potent. She saw the flicker of something primal in their eyes as he dismissed her casual advance. It was unexpected, almost insulting. She was Alexandra Holt, CEO, the woman who commanded fortunes with a flick of her wrist. Men didn't reject her. They groveled. But Jack simply wanted the lights turned back on. I just need the lights in Emma's workshop turned back on. She has a robotics competition tonight. She's been building in the dark for 2 weeks. That's all I want. Just the lights so she can finish her project. The silence in the room was thick enough to choke on. It wasn't the silence of respect, but of discomfort, of witnessing a raw, honest plea that exposed the shallowness of their own pursuits. Alexandra, for the first time in a long time, felt something stir within her that wasn't ambition. Who's Emma? Her voice was softer now, the steel edges of authority momentarily dulled. My daughter. She's 7 years old. He met her gaze, unflinching. She's smarter than I'll ever be. She's building an autonomous rover with sensors. She coded it herself. She deserves a fair shot. That's all I'm asking for. Not money, not a promotion, just lights. A wave of unexpected emotion crashed over Alexandra. Shame, a feeling she'd carefully suppressed and disguised for years, rose to the surface. She had weaponized his vulnerability, made a spectacle of his struggle for the amusement of others. But his motivation wasn't self-aggrandizement, or even a desire to impress her. It was love, pure and unadulterated, for a 7-year-old girl building robots in the dark. Done, she said, the word sharper than she intended, yet laced with a newfound determination. The lights will be on by tonight. You have my word. He nodded, a simple gesture of acceptance, then turned away to gather his tools. No grand thank you, no attempt to capitalize on her guilt. Just a quiet dignity that resonated far more powerfully than any carefully crafted boardroom speech. Back in her office, the city lights blurred outside the window. Alexandra felt adrift, disoriented. She was a master of control, a builder of empires, yet she felt like a puppet whose strings had been suddenly cut. She typed his name into the company database, Jack Hunter. The information that spilled onto the screen painted a portrait of a man she had carelessly reduced to a stereotype. Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. Military service. Honorable discharge. A man with a past, a life beyond the mop and bucket. His personnel photo, taken 7 years ago, revealed a younger, more polished version of the man she had just humiliated. He looked hopeful, eager to contribute. The interview suit he wore spoke of aspirations, of a fresh start. Alexandra slammed the file closed, the weight of her actions pressing down on her. She picked up the phone, her voice firm despite the turmoil within. Turn the lights back on in the workshop at PS 114. Tonight. I don't care what it costs. She sat back, staring at the ceiling, lost in a labyrinth of memories. Her father's stroke, her ruthless takeover of the company, the sacrifices she had made to achieve her position. She had equated strength with detachment, with the ability to make cold, calculated decisions. But now, watching the city lights twinkle like distant stars, she wondered if she had mistaken hardness for strength. Jack's weary gaze, devoid of anger, haunted her. And Emma, a 7-year-old girl dreaming in circuits and code, soldering under the dim glow of a desk lamp. It was a mirror reflecting a forgotten part of herself. The little girl who had once felt the magic of flight before it became just another business transaction. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. Client from Seattle is asking about the test flight. Should I reschedule? No, she replied, her fingers moving with a newfound purpose. Tell them the demonstration is happening as planned. We're good to go? She looked out the window, picturing Jack heading back to his duties and Emma waiting for the promise of light. A profound ache resonated within her, a yearning for something real, something human, a feeling she hadn't allowed herself to experience in years. The next evening found her wandering the employee parking lot, the click of her heels a sharp counterpoint to the quiet hum of the city. She told herself it was a routine inspection, but her heart knew the truth. She was searching. She found his truck in the far corner, a battered Ford F-150 bearing the scars of time and hard work. He was underneath it, tools scattered across the asphalt, his legs protruding from beneath the chassis. The sound of her approach made him pause. He slid out, his face smudged with grease, his expression a mixture of surprise and wariness. Miss Holt, he said, his voice formal. I owe you an apology. Alexandra shook her head. No, Jack. What I did yesterday was wrong. I used you. I made you a spectacle in front of everyone. I turned your skill into a joke and your dignity into a bet. That was cruel. I'm sorry. He wiped his hands on a rag, his gaze steady. I didn't do it for you. I did it for Emma. I know. She paused, searching for the right words. Did she win? A smile, a genuine smile that transformed his face, bloomed. Second place. But she got into the summer camp. Full scholarship. She cried when I told her. Happy tears. First time I've seen those in a while. Alexandra felt that familiar tightness in her chest, but this time it was accompanied by a flicker of warmth. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. This is an invitation to the company gala next month. Black tie. Normally, it's just board members and investors, but I'm inviting you and Emma. There's going to be a robotics exhibit. MIT is bringing some of their competition bots. I thought she might like to see them. He looked at the envelope, but didn't take it. Why? Because I want to apologize properly, and because your daughter sounds brilliant. She should meet people who understand what she's building. Alexandra held out the envelope. No pressure, just an offer. If you don't want to come, I understand. He hesitated, then took it, his fingers brushing hers. The paper was heavy, expensive, embossed with the Holt Aerotech logo. I'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Alexandra turned to leave, then stopped. Jack. Yeah. Thank you for fixing the helicopter and for reminding me what humility looks like. I think I'd forgotten. She walked away, her heels clicking on the pavement, leaving him standing beside his battered truck, holding an invitation to a world he had never sought. She got into her Tesla, a symbol of her success, and drove home. the weight of her past suddenly feeling lighter. That night, sleep eluded her. The image of Emma, bathed in the glow of a desk lamp, tirelessly working on her creation, filled her mind. She thought of Jack turning down her impulsive kiss, his priorities so clearly defined. She rose in the pre-dawn hours, made coffee, and sat at her kitchen counter with her laptop. She accessed the company's charitable foundation account and typed in PS 114, Emma's school. She authorized a $50,000 grant, new equipment for the STEM lab, a robotics program, scholarships for students who couldn't afford competition fees. A silent act of contrition, a small attempt to right a past wrong. As she closed her laptop, a sense of peace, fragile yet profound, settled over her. For the first time in days, she felt like she could breathe. 3 weeks later, Alexandra found herself in a crowded auditorium, the air buzzing with excitement. Emma Hunter stood on the stage, her face radiant, clutching a trophy almost as big as herself. Her rover had conquered the regional robotics finals, navigating a complex obstacle course with a speed and precision that had stunned the judges. Alexandra watched from the back row, disguised in jeans and a simple sweater, feeling a connection to the celebration she had never expected. She saw Jack lift Emma onto his shoulders, his pride palpable, and felt a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with closing deals or achieving milestones. It was pure, unadulterated joy. After the ceremony, Emma, her eyes sparkling with triumph, spotted her. "Are you my dad's boss?" Alexandra crouched down, meeting her gaze. "Sort of. Are you his girlfriend?" Alexandra froze, her heart skipping a beat. She glanced at Jack, who was standing nearby, trying to suppress a smile. "No," she said carefully. "I'm just a friend." Emma's face fell slightly. "Oh, I thought you were pretty." Alexandra's throat tightened. "Thank you, Emma. I think you're brilliant." Emma grinned, then ran back to her father, eager to share her victory with him. Alexandra stood up slowly, feeling a strange vulnerability. Jack walked over, his eyes filled with amusement. "Sorry about that. She's been asking a lot of questions lately." "It's fine." Alexandra smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "She's wonderful." "Yeah, she is." He looked at her, his gaze lingering. "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to both of us. I wouldn't have missed it." A week later, Alexandra summoned Jack to her office, the air thick with unspoken tension. She offered him a position as a senior test engineer, a chance to reclaim the career he had abandoned. The offer came with full benefits, a generous salary, and a substantial signing bonus. He turned it down. "I appreciate it. I really do," he said, his voice sincere. "But I don't want to go back to a world where people are measured by their titles. I'm happy where I am. I get to be there for Emma. That's what matters." Alexandra didn't argue. She understood. For the first time in her life, she understood that success wasn't always about climbing higher, about accumulating more. Sometimes, it was about recognizing the summit you had already reached. But something had undeniably shifted between them. A subtle current of attraction, a shared understanding that transcended their vastly different worlds. He started lingering after his shift, drawn to her presence. She began arriving earlier, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. They talked about helicopters, about Emma's inventions, about everything and nothing. And slowly, tentatively, a seed of connection began to sprout. A month later, Alexandra found herself observing a test flight of the H-145, a routine maintenance check before its delivery to the Seattle client. As she approached the hangar, she saw Jack, not in his usual janitorial uniform, but in a flight suit, coordinating the ground crew with an easy authority. "I thought you turned down the engineering position," she said, surprised. He looked up, a smile playing on his lips. "I did, but they asked me to consult on safety protocols for the test flights. Temporary contractor." I said yes. "Why?" "Because Emma asked me if I was ever going to fly again. I told her I didn't need to." She said, "But Dad, you love helicopters." He grinned. "Turns out you can't hide from 7-year-olds. Alexandra laughed, a light, genuine sound that echoed through the hangar. After the flawless flight, she found him near the H-145, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun. The helicopter gleamed like a mythical creature, a testament to human ingenuity and the enduring power of dreams. She walked towards him, holding something in her hand, a faded, slightly stained piece of cloth. He recognized it instantly. The rag he had used to wipe his hands that day. The day he had fixed the helicopter and inadvertently opened a door to something unexpected. "I kept this," she said quietly, her voice barely a whisper. "From the day you saved the project." Jack looked at her, his eyes searching. "Why?" "Because it reminded me that I'm not always right, and that sometimes the person you least expect is the one who changes everything." She stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking with each heartbeat. "Do you remember what I said that day about the kiss?" "Yeah," he said softly. "I didn't mean it. It was cruel. And I'm sorry." "I know." Alexandra looked up at him, her heart pounding in her chest. "But I'd like to make a new offer." "What's that?" "I'd like the first kiss to be because I love you, not because you fixed something." Jack's breath caught in his throat. He looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw beyond the polished facade, beyond the CEO persona. He saw a woman who had spent her life building walls around her heart, and who was now, finally, willing to let them crumble. He reached out and took her hand, his touch sending a shiver through her. "Are you sure?" She nodded, her eyes shining with a newfound vulnerability. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." The H-145 stood silent, and still behind them, a silent witness to their unfolding story. The sky above them deepened into shades of purple and gold. Somewhere in the distance, a bird called, its melody weaving through the evening air. Jack leaned down, his gaze locking with hers. Alexandra rose up on her toes, her fingers tracing the curve of his jaw, and they kissed. Softly, slowly, tentatively. Not because of a bet, not because of a challenge, but because somewhere between the engine and the apology, between the daughter and the dream, two broken souls had found a way to piece themselves back together. When they finally pulled apart, Alexandra rested her forehead against his, a sigh escaping her lips. "Emma's going to be insufferable about this," she murmured, a smile tugging at her lips. Jack laughed, a warm, genuine sound that resonated deep within her. "Yeah, she's going to say she knew all along." She probably did. They stood there, hand in hand, as the sun disappeared below the horizon and the stars began to emerge, twinkling like diamonds scattered across a velvet cloth. And for the first time in years, Alexandra Holt felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. Not in a boardroom, not in a penthouse overlooking the city, but here, with him, under the vast, star-studded sky, where helicopters were born and love had learned to fly. Maybe you too have been searching for your place in the world, for the love that makes you feel truly seen. Remember to embrace the unexpected, to find the beauty in the ordinary, and to never underestimate the power of human connection. Share this with someone who needs a reminder that love can blossom in the most unlikely of places, and leave a comment sharing your own stories of unexpected connections. And if you enjoyed this journey of healing and discovery, don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming tales. And as we close this chapter, let's remember that every act of kindness, every moment of vulnerability, can spark a chain reaction of positive change. May your own life be filled with unexpected blessings and the kind of love that heals and transforms. Thank you for being a part of this journey.